Imagine you are sailing on the calm, open Atlantic. The sun is bright, the sea is glass. In the distance, you spot another vessel, a two-masted brigantine, its sails flapping uselessly in the wind. As you get closer, you realize something is terribly wrong. There is no one on deck, no one at the wheel. You call out. The only answer is the creak of the rigging and the sound of the ocean against the hull. You board the ship. In the captain's cabin, charts are laid out on the table. Personal belongings are neatly stored. In the galley, there is ample food and water. The ship's cargo, thousands of barrels of industrial alcohol, is untouched in the hold. The ship is in perfect sailing condition, but it is completely, terrifyingly empty. This is not the setup for a horror movie. This is the reality of the ghost ship, the most chilling and persistent mystery of the maritime world. We've all heard the legends, tales like the Flying Dutchman, the spectral ship captained by a madman who cursed God, doomed to sail the seas for eternity as an omen of death. But those are legends. The truth, the real stories, are far more disturbing. Today, we are not just telling ghost stories. We are investigating the true, documented cases of vessels found adrift in the vast emptiness of the ocean. We will analyze the facts, the clues, and the terrifying theories behind history's most haunting ghost ships, and ask the one question that has never been answered. What really happened to the crews?
Our first story is the archetype. It is the case against which all other ghost ships are measured. It is the ultimate maritime enigma, the Mary Celeste. On December 5th, 1872, the Canadian brigantine Die Gratia was sailing through the Atlantic, midway between the Azores and the coast of Portugal. Her captain, David Morehouse, spotted a ship several miles off. It was moving erratically, its sails set but damaged, as if it had been through a storm, yet the weather was clear. Captain Morehouse recognized the ship. It was the Mary Celeste, which had left New York City 8 days before his own ship. He knew her captain, Benjamin Spooner Briggs. They were friends. But as the Die Gratia drew closer, an overpowering sense of dread filled the air. The ship was silent. Morehouse ordered a boarding party, led by his chief mate, Oliver DeVoe. What DeVoe found would become the subject of legend for 150 years. The ship was, as he later testified, a thoroughly seaworthy vessel, but it was deserted. On deck, the single lifeboat was missing. This was the first and most crucial clue. The crew had abandoned the ship. But why? DeVoe and his men moved below decks. In the crew's quarters, their sea chests and personal belongings were neatly packed. Their oilskin boots and pipes were left behind, as if they expected to return. In the captain's cabin, the scene was even more unsettling. Captain Briggs's sword was in its sheath. His wife's melodeon, a small organ, and sewing machine were in their places. A small child's toys were scattered. The ship had been carrying Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, along with a crew of 7 men. All 10 were gone. The ship's logbook was found. Its final entry was dated 8 a.m. on November 25th, 10 days earlier. It recorded the ship's position as just off Santa Maria Island in the Azores. In those 10 days, the Mary Celeste had drifted over 400 nautical miles, an unmanned, silent vessel carrying its terrible secret. The ship's cargo of 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol was almost entirely intact. The ship's provisions of food and water were plentiful, enough for 6 months. There was no sign of violence, no bloodstains, no indication of a struggle. The ship was not taking on water. It was, quite simply, a perfectly good ship with no one on it.
When the Dei Gracia towed the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar, the mystery only deepened. The immediate assumption was foul play. The first theory was pirates, but this was 1872, and piracy on the high Atlantic was rare. More importantly, the pirates had done a terrible job. The most valuable items, the ship's cargo, the crew's money, even the captain's sword were all left behind. The pirate theory was dismissed. The next theory was mutiny. Had the crew risen up, murdered the brig's family, and fled in the lifeboat? Again, the evidence said no. There were no signs of a fight. Captain Briggs was known as a fair and respected commander. His crew was experienced and had good reputations. Furthermore, if you just seized a ship, why would you immediately abandon it in the middle of the ocean? This left only one horrifying conclusion. The captain and crew had willingly abandoned a perfectly sound ship, taken themselves, the ship's papers, and the navigational instruments into a tiny lifeboat and vanishing into the vast, unforgiving Atlantic. For decades, this made no sense. But a modern theory has emerged that is so plausible it is now widely accepted as the most likely solution. It centers on the cargo, 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. 9 of the barrels were found empty. While they were made of red oak, which is porous, another possibility exists. Denatured alcohol is highly volatile. It's possible that on that November morning, a buildup of alcoholic fumes from the 9 leaking barrels caused a small, contained explosion. A dramatic whoosh of flame and pressure that blew off the hatch covers but did no structural damage. To Captain Briggs, this would have been terrifying. He was sailing with a volatile, explosive cargo, his wife and his infant daughter. He may have believed the entire ship was about to erupt in a fireball. Panicked, he would have given the only logical order: abandon ship, temporarily. The crew would have quickly lowered the lifeboat. They would have tied a long tow line, perhaps the main peak halyard, from the Mary Celeste to the lifeboat. They would have gathered in the small boat, just a few hundred feet behind the main ship, waiting to see if it would explode. They waited. The ship, catching the wind, sailed on. And then the unthinkable. Either a sudden squall snapped the tow line, or the line simply chafed and broke. In a matter of minutes, the Mary Celeste, their only hope of survival, would have sailed away from them, moving faster than they could possibly row. The 10 souls in the lifeboat, a captain, his family, and his crew, were left to watch their ship disappear over the horizon, left alone in the middle of the Atlantic. Their fate was sealed. The ocean, as it always does, kept its secret. If the Mary Celeste was a clean, bloodless mystery, our next case is its dark and violent counterpart. We move forward to the 20th century, to the warm, shark-infested waters of the South Pacific. This is the story of the MV Joyita. In October 1955, the Joyita, a 69-foot fishing and charter vessel, was set to make a routine 48-hour trip from Samoa to the Tokelau Islands. On board were 25 people, 16 crew members, and 9 passengers, including a doctor, a civil servant, and 2 children. The Joyita never arrived. A massive search and rescue operation was launched. For weeks, aircraft and ships scoured the ocean. They found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slicks, no survivors. The Joyita and its 25 souls had vanished. 5 weeks later, a merchant ship found it. The Joyita was spotted drifting 600 miles off course, partially submerged and listing heavily to one side, its deck awash with waves. But it was not sunk. And it was empty. What the boarding party discovered was a scene of pure horror and confusion. All the ship's life rafts and dinghies were gone. The ship's radio was missing. The logbook and navigational equipment were gone. And 4 tons of cargo, including medical supplies, timber, and food, had also vanished. But there were more chilling clues.
The ship's radio was found to be tuned to the International Maritime Distress Channel, but a break in the wire, hidden by paint, meant that any signal would have only traveled 2 miles. The crew thought they were calling for help, but no one could hear them. The most disturbing discovery of all? On the deck, investigators found a doctor's bag and several bloodied bandages. The mystery of the Joyita is a terrifying paradox, because the ship, investigators discovered, was designed to be unsinkable. Its hull was lined with thousands of cubic feet of cork. Even with its engine room flooded, it would not and could not sink. So we are faced with an impossible question. Why would 25 people abandon an unsinkable ship to take their chances in small open life rafts in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? The bloody bandages suggest an injury and violence. The missing cargo suggests theft. Several theories emerged. The first was that the captain, a man named Dusty Miller, had died or been incapacitated. The bloody bandages certainly point to a medical emergency. Perhaps the flooded engine room and the failed radio, combined with the loss of their leader, caused a mass panic. They abandoned the unsinkable ship, believing it was doomed, and perished at sea. But a darker theory persists. It involves the missing cargo and the signs of violence. This theory points to pirates, not pirates from legend, but modern-day thieves. It's possible the Joyita was attacked, its cargo stolen, and the passengers and crew murdered and thrown overboard. An even stranger theory, popular at the time, was that the Joyita had been attacked by Japanese holdouts, soldiers from World War II, still hiding on remote islands, who captured the ship for its supplies. Whatever happened, it was not quiet. It was not peaceful. The 25 people aboard the Joyita did not go gently. They were injured, they were bleeding, and they were desperate. They left their phantom ship behind as a floating tombstone, a silent testament to a violent end that to this day remains unsolved.
For many, the stories of the Mary Celeste and Joyita feel like relics of a bygone era, a time before GPS, before satellite phones, before modern safety equipment. We believe that, today, a ship simply cannot vanish. We are wrong. Our final case takes us to 2007, off the coast of Australia. It is known as the modern Mary Celeste.
This is the mystery of the Kaz 2. The Kaz 2 was a 33-foot modern catamaran, a sleek, state-of-the-art yacht. On April 15, 2007, it set sail from Early Beach, Queensland, for a trip up the coast. On board were 3 men: the owner, Derek Batten, 56, and his friends, Peter and James Tunstead, 69 and 63. All 3 were experienced sailors. 3 days later, the Kaz 2 was spotted by a helicopter drifting aimlessly near the Great Barrier Reef. When maritime authorities boarded the vessel on April 20th, the scene was eerily familiar. It was as if the crew had vanished into thin air. The engine was running, a laptop was on and open. The radio and GPS were working perfectly. In the galley, food was set out on the table, as if in preparation for a meal. All the ship's emergency jackets were still neatly stored in their lockers. The ship's emergency beacon had not been activated. There was no sign of a struggle, no sign of foul play, but the 3 men were gone. This time, however, investigators had something they never had with the Mary Celeste or the Joyita: digital evidence. A video camera was found on board. Investigators eagerly played back the footage, hoping to find the final terrible moments of the crew. The last recording was made on April 15th, the day they set sail, just hours before they are believed to have disappeared. The video shows Peter Tunstead at the stern, fishing. The sea is calm. He pans the camera around, showing Derek Batten at the helm.
The mood is relaxed, happy. Everything is perfectly normal. And then the video ends.
So, what happened? How, on a calm day, on a modern yacht, do three experienced sailors simply dematerialize? The investigation, led by the Queensland coroner, pieced together the most plausible and terrifying scenario. It wasn't a single event, but a rapid, tragic chain of errors. The coroner's report suggests the following. The Katumai 2 was sailing in calm seas. Peter, fishing from the back, may have snagged his lure on the ocean floor or a reef. As he tried to free it, he lost his balance and fell overboard. James, his brother, seeing him fall, immediately ran to the back of the boat and dove in to save him. Neither man was wearing a life jacket. Derek, the skipper, was now alone on the boat. He heard the commotion, saw his two friends in the water. He turned the boat around to pick them up, but in his haste, he may have misjudged the wind. As the boat turned, the large, heavy sail boom, a horizontal pole at the bottom of the sail, would have swung rapidly across the deck. It's believed the boom struck Derek, knocking him unconscious and sweeping him into the ocean. In less than a minute, all three men were in the water, watching as their perfectly functional engine-running yacht, caught in the current, slowly drifted away from them, carrying its open laptop and its half-prepared meal with it. It was a freak accident, a one-in-a-million scenario that took just seconds to unfold. There was no monster, no pirate, no supernatural force. There was only the sea, and a single fatal moment of bad luck. The Katuzai 2 is perhaps the most terrifying story of all. It reminds us that despite all our technology, the ocean is a place of profound and immediate danger. It doesn't need storms or sea monsters to claim you. It just needs one small mistake.
From a 19th century brigantine to a 21st century yacht. From the Mary Celeste to the Cass 2. The story, separated by 135 years, is exactly the same. The ship is found, the people are gone. These images are more than just curiosities. They are profound challenges to our understanding of the world. They force us to confront the questions we are often too afraid to answer. Are these tragedies simply elaborate, unsolved accidents, the result of panic, bad luck, or human error? Or are they fleeting, terrifying glimpses into a world that exists just beyond our own, a world that is watching us? The true terror of the ghost ship is not the idea of a spectral vessel. It is not the Flying Dutchman or the tales of hauntings. The true terror is the emptiness. It is the profound, unsettling fear of being erased, of vanishing from the face of the earth, leaving behind only a few neatly packed belongings and a half-eaten meal, leaving behind an empty vessel, a silent monument to an unsolved mystery. The ocean is the last true wilderness on our planet. It covers more than 70% of our world, and most of it remains unexplored, unknown, and profoundly indifferent to our survival. It does not care about our plans, our technology, or our lives. And the ocean keeps its secrets.